Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me from the Greensboro Coliseum tonight, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew, you were there in the flesh for North Carolina's 101-59 win over Notre Dame in the second round of the ACC tournament on that court right there behind you. Pretty sweet backdrop right there, man. That's a heck of a camera spot for you right there. That's good stuff.
I have a chair sitting on top of press row so I can get this thing. Otherwise, I'd be looking down on it. I think that's terrible. And I look bad enough no matter what the angle is, but that would be a really bad angle for everybody.
Hey, man, you're too modest. That's a heck of a backdrop right there, AJ. I'm digging it a lot, especially from someone who uses a camera a lot. That's good stuff right there, man. I'm going to go ahead and run through some stats, and then we'll dive into it as we always do. A lot to run through, so y'all bear with me. Armando Bacot led the way, 20 points, 13 boards. Walker Kessler, big night from him again, 16 points, 12 rebounds, and 8 blocks. Caleb Love, 15 points, 6 assists. Day'Ron Sharpe, 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. And RJ Davis pitched in kind of a quiet 14. I looked at that stat sheet and was like, didn't realize he had that much. So 5 Tar Heels right there in double figures, and what was a big performance from them tonight. AJ, first thing I want to talk about, though, and I think we have to start with this. I don't think there's anywhere else we can start. The bigs. I mean, I just ran through some of those stats. Bacot with 20, Kessler with 16, Sharpe with 14. You got all 3 of those guys in double figures and blocks as well. So just a really, really positive performance from those 3 guys. A really, really impressive performance, especially with the absence of Garrison Brooks, too. Really good night for the bigs.
They combined for 21 for 31 from the floor, 35 rebounds, 20 of them were offensive. So 20 offensive rebounds by these 2 guys. Pretty amazing. They had 14 offensive rebounds before Notre Dame got an offensive rebound. One reason is because Notre Dame wasn't getting any shots and Carolina was getting a ton. But, they didn't have Garrison Brooks. When they ran out of the tunnel, I shot a little video that you can see on our Twitter handle at Heel Illustrated. And everyone's kind of jogging out there. And then there's Garrison slowly walking alongside Sean May. I was like, he didn't look like he felt great either.
Yeah.
And so we started monitoring him, and a little bit later, Steve Kersher came over and gave us the deal that he had not practiced since the Duke game. He hurt his ankle the first minute of the Duke game when he came down on Matthew Hurt's foot. He finished the game out, played well, had a great senior night. In fact, one of the more memorable senior nights as far as the emotion and everything else goes. But he hadn't practiced since. So Roy went to the bigs yesterday in practice and said, look, there's a chance Garrison may not play tomorrow. So he asked them, what's the one thing he does really well that has to be replaced? And all 3 of them said essentially simultaneously, communicate. So I think that they raised their awareness game. They raised their sense of urgency. And because of that, they were really connected. A lot of those assists were big to big. Armando even had one to Day'Ron on a play. So they were just dialed in. I think that they had their minds have to be right first, and then the bodies are going to follow no matter what. That happens everything in athletics. And it was very clear from the first moment of the game that those guys were totally dialed in. And then when the big went to the bench, Walker went in there and did his thing. It was truly a remarkable performance by 2 freshmen and a sophomore, all 3 with double-doubles. Kessler with the UNC record for 8 block shots in an ACC tournament game. And it's a freshman record in an ACC tournament game overall. You can our notes, when Steve sends the notes and we post them on the board, they're going to be really, really, really long. It's going to look like the Declaration of Independence or something like that. It's pretty impressive what those guys did. And they were outstanding in doing it. I mean, Day'Ron Sharpe had 2 spin moves that were breathtaking. And, there are times in the last 6 weeks where he's looked a little out of control, where maybe he and Armando get the ball too low into the basket and they have to kind of burrow their way in to score. They were getting the ball in the right spots. They were turning and scoring. Armando with the jump hooks, Kessler with the jump hooks. They really, really were outstanding in every facet of the game. There was a stretch, I think, in the second half where Roy was a little critical about stuff. But I asked him about the team being dialed in, about their decisiveness, about their energy level. But he didn't have a whole lot to criticize. By the way, Carolina had 22 offensive rebounds by the first TV time out of the second half. And it was mostly those guys. I could sit here and itemize all the things they did well, and it would be the longest video we've ever done, including one that David Sisk and I do, which are usually about 47 hours. But they were just really, 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 really good. It was awfully impressive to sit there and watch that in person. And being as close as I was. This year in the COVID year, they've had media much further away from most games. So it was pretty cool to really get a chance to see them much closer and do their thing, and they were superb.
Yeah, agreed. I thought the bigs were really good tonight, especially like I said with the absence of Garrison Brooks, one of Carolina's most veteran players, and obviously one of their most veteran bigs. But second thing I want to talk about, Carolina used that, what was a 37-2 second half run that really just kind of gave Carolina the advantage, kind of let them pull away a little bit, and ended up winning really comfortably. And there was some spurts in that, like I said, 37-2. I mean, Notre Dame just looked like helpless out there. Like they had no idea how to stop Carolina, no idea what to do on the offensive side of the ball. And I thought that obviously played a major factor in Carolina just winning as comfortably as they did tonight.
You could check our Twitter feed. And at 59:47, I posted on the board and I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and tweet that too. I tweeted that Carolina, Leakey had just got called for a foul. They lost the ball, it was a turnover, and Notre Dame had the ball. And it was 59-47. And I tweeted, I said, Carolina's only up 12 points, and it sure feels like a lot more.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, Dan could go on torrent stretches from the perimeter, and the Irish hadn't really hit a bunch from the perimeter yet. And you think, wow, if they hit a few from the perimeter, as well as Carolina's played, this thing could become a game. Boom. That's when the run started. Kessler blocks a jumper by Juwan Howard. He gets rewarded on the other end by scoring, and that started this thing going. There were a couple of times where I marked in my notes what the run was and thought, okay, well, that will be one of the 5 takeaways. And I had to theoretically scribble it out and add a new run total because it went from 20-2 to 28-2 and eventually 37-2. That was impressive. It was 11 minutes and 46 seconds, 37-2. They did everything in that stretch. And what was really interesting is the tail end of the stretch was Anthony Harris and Andrew Platek.
Yeah.
So everybody was involved. It wasn't just the bigs doing their thing. RJ Davis was phenomenal on that stretch, showing, that was about as mature and decisive and heads-up game we've seen him play in a while. And he's had some moments like that this year. He didn't look like a freshman tonight. He looked like an older player who's been through the ACC tournament before and played in games like this before. They did just about everything well during that stretch, but they were superb defensively. It's twice I've used the word superb tonight. Not sure I've even used it all year long, Jacob, but they were superb defensively in that stretch, and they just sucked the life out of Notre Dame. I will never say a team quit without one of them telling me they quit. It appeared that Notre Dame quit, and I'm only using this as an example because that's how much of the life was sucked out of them. I'm not saying that they did it all, not at all, but they were shell-shocked. They were whacked so hard by Carolina that they were just a discombobulated mess, and credit Carolina for that because the Tar Heels did it defensively. They did it offensively with the way they moved, the way they spaced, the way they passed. They did it by attacking and dominating the glass, and they just had an edge to them tonight throughout the game, and in particular in that 37-2 stretch, which that's about as impressive as they played all season long. And by the way, they hit the 100-point mark for the first time this year as well. So 50 points in both half, 50 in the first half, 51 in the second half. Again, laundry list of so many things that they did right tonight.
Absolutely. AJ, last thing I want to talk about, we've talked about it a lot this season, as many Carolina fans have as well, is just the fact that this team has been so inconsistent. But, you've got a good sample size of regular season finale in Chapel Hill against Duke. The Tar Heels played really well. One of their best games, if not their best game of the season. Then in the next game tonight against Notre Dame, Tar Heels played again really, really well, arguably their best game of the season again. So we've seen the Tar Heels in this stretch, and like I said, it's something they haven't really been able to do a lot this season, connecting well-played games, going back-to-back in this. And I guess now the focus turns to, especially now that we're in the postseason, you've got to keep that going. So I guess now the focus turns to Thursday night and if the Tar Heels can do it again against the Hokies. But from what we've seen in the last 2 games for the Tar Heels, I think it's a really positive sign as they dive deeper into the ACC tournament.
Well, because they've done something they haven't done yet. So let's go back to the Pittsburgh game on January 26th. They played really, really well that night. That was before Pittsburgh had fully imploded, okay? I think that they had began that process, but Carolina may have also kind of pushed them along. Tar Heels went up there 1 by 10. They did a lot of things really well. That was their best game to date at that point, okay? Then they followed up with the Clemson. So then they started going back and forth. Really high one game, really poor, struggled, all kinds of stuff the next game. Then they're back up. Well, what they did, though, during that period was they kept showing a higher push. So when they played really well, it was better than the previous time they played really well. So the freshmen basically, who the first 2 months, they rarely were they ever really good in any one particular game as a group. You could say Carolina played well, but not really good. Okay. So suddenly they get really good at Pittsburgh, then really, really good against Louisville, really, really good against Florida State. And they did it again against Duke. And what they hadn't done was connect these things. So we did see the growth that, hey, they're starting to play at a higher level at times. The next step is do it 2 games in a row. Learn to connect. That's the ultimate sign of maturity and growth in a team. And they did that tonight. Roy kind of downplayed a little bit, saying that Notre Dame played the night before. They're not very deep. I get all that. But just like we saw with Louisville when they were coming off the COVID thing and they were not really ready to play, I'm looking at how Carolina played. They played with the same kind of alertness, the same kind of awareness, the same kind of connection out there. They had amazing energy throughout. They defended, they communicated. The help side defense was there, sharing the ball, the cutting, the moving, the thinking. The brain was working really well that game, and it was working really well tonight. And that's 2 straight games they've done that. Look, they had a great start against Duke. They had a great start here tonight. And when you and I both, we talked in a video the other day that we really thought Garrison Brooks would be the X factor here because they needed the old guy to kind of help them get their feet wet in the ACC tournament. And what the heck do we know? Because he didn't play, and they were still phenomenal. So this was an amazing sign of growth. Now the task is to do it again Thursday night against a really good team, but a team that's coming off a COVID pause. And by the way, Carolina is playing somebody in the ACC tournament. It hasn't played in the regular season yet, which, again, another wrinkle of how bizarre this year is. But the task at hand is to do this again. I think they're capable of doing it because they have some advantages inside, and they do have tremendous depth even without Garrison. And they have the confidence now of knowing, okay, we could piggyback this stuff. So they're still blooming. They still got stuff sprouting in this team. And we saw a big part of that tonight.
Absolutely, AJ. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here, man. I know you got plenty of work to do. It's getting late too, man. And 9 o'clock games can be a killer sometimes, right?
I'm gonna be up till about 5 working. You know.
I'm about to say at least, man. You might go to bed tonight. We'll see how that goes, but I'll let you go, AJ. And Carolina
could be coming up by the time AJ's on it.
Yeah, exactly. Carolina getting the big win over Notre Dame in the second round of the ACC tournament, 101-59. Tonight. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. If you enjoyed the win, thought it was a really good performance from the Tar Heels tonight, go ahead and give our video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. And as always, guys, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one. Thanks.